This is episode 141 of The Variety Artist. This is John Abrams, your host and that guy that interviews successful variety artists from around the world every single week. When I first connected with my guest, we spoke a lot about hosting game shows. Originally, I wanted him to talk about doing his live stream game show, but we got so much more. In this interview, you're going to learn about everything virtual, about building relationships, communicating with Gen Z and millennials, and using virtual as a platform to succeed. If you plan on or are working in the virtual space at all, you have to listen to this one.
Welcome to The Variety Artist, providing aspiring artists and entertainers with in-depth discussions from top performers from all over the world. So get ready to book some gigs, make some money, and have some fun with your host, John Abrams.
He's the host and creator of Trivia Stream, the college market's #1 virtual game show, performing over 350 shows since March 2020, since the beginning of COVID. Oh my gosh. You heard all about him on my CJ Johnson interview, and now we get a chance to talk to the man himself. Magician, corporate trainer, game show host, and so much more. Variety artist, I give you Gus Davis.
Hey, that's me. I know that guy. I know him.
I actually see him on my computer screen right now.
This is the new world we live in, right? It's like, I mean, we've met, right? Now we've just met through the computer.
That's right. I meet so many people doing this podcast that I would have never met otherwise. Because where are you right now?
I'm in Austin, Texas. That's where
you're in Austin, Texas. I'm in Southern California. And yet we get to say hello.
Yeah. I'm so jealous. We're jumping right in, John. Hey, we're jumping right in. So one of the things that I've noticed is my son stayed home last year because of COVID, and he did virtual school. Sure. It was so weird because
wait, how old is your son? About
he just turned 13. Man, does that make me feel good about myself? So yeah, he just turned 13. And what was
I have two kids. I have a 22-year-old and a 29-year-old. When they got into high school, that's when I knew I was getting old.
Okay, so for me, I work a lot of colleges. My performer brain is always in the college market, and so all of a sudden thinking that, hey, I've got a kid that's 5 years away from going to college. So anyway, he did virtual school, and when he wasn't in class, and honestly, sometimes when he was, he would be playing like all these video games, right? He was playing Roblox and Fortnite and all this stuff. Yeah. And he developed such a relationship with all of these other players, but everybody goes by their username, their tag name, right? And so on his 12th birthday, I remember he came to me with like tears in his eyes. He's like, man, my friends are so nice. Like they got me all of these cool skins, and they like donated some of their Robux and just for my birthday, they like pooled it together. I'm like, oh my God, that's so nice. Who are these people that are doing all this stuff for you? And he named off all these tag names. And I was like, I mean, like, what's their real name? And he was like, Dad, we don't ask that question. So I don't know who these people are. And the funny thing is, he doesn't know who these people are. They're just an entity online. I think that is a great way to start this interview.
What's funny about that is that when we first started doing virtual and kids were on cell phones all the time, we thought, oh my goodness, nobody's going to connect with anybody. Connecting with anybody is dead. But just the story that you just told, your son connected with a bunch of people he wouldn't have connected with before.
Ever. No. Ever. And I mean, not to be too sci-fi about it, in my head, he connected with the digital version of those people. He doesn't know what they look like. He doesn't know how old they are. He doesn't know what their real name is or where they're located. But he does know that he plays with them in the sandbox area of the virtual all the time, and that they care enough about him to actually in real life do something nice for him.
Yeah.
There's something poetic there.
It's a different type of relationship.
Yeah. That's the hashtag for this entire podcast. It's a different type of relationship. I love that. That's exactly right.
All right. We're going to get into you now.
Sure.
We talked about your son. Now you were a magician at first, or still are actually.
Yeah.
What drove you into the game show field?
I like money. That's the answer. So So I've been super fortunate in my performing career, and it's almost unfair because I got started performing when I was about 11 years old. I went to a summer magic camp in Austin, Texas. It was the first year that the magic camp got started, and I just fell in love with the art form of really all variety arts. I fell in love with magic. I remember I sat down and hand copied in a spiral notebook most of the Mark Wilson course on magic because I was like, I don't know how much more access I'm going to have to these kind of magic books.
Wow.
So I loved magic. I was a latchkey kid. So I was there at the minute that the door was open and I was the last kid to leave. And so I learned how to juggle and do balloons and puppetry, all those things. And all of those skills have just stayed with me. And because I was at this camp, that's how I got to meet a lot of other performers that are either passing through or that lived in Austin and wanted to donate their time. I was literally there all of the time. And so I got to know all these people, and those people kind of took me under their wing and helped me develop my own show. And
you had real life relationships.
Yeah. I'd like to say that I've never had a real job, which is technically true, but since I was 11, I've been performing and making a living that way. When I was in college, I would go out and help CJ Johnson. He does a touring illusion show, and I'd go out and I'd help him do his tech. Here's how I remember it. I remember I graduated college with the most broad liberal arts degree in the world. Like, I knew I wanted to have a degree, but I was like, I'm going to do magic for the rest of my life. Like, what do I need a degree for? So I got my degree. The summer I got my degree, I remember that CJ called and he was like, hey man, I have an idea for a touring high production game show. You're funny. Do you want to be a game show host? And I was like, yeah, sounds great. And he's like, great. And he just hung up the phone. And that was the beginning of it. And I thought he was kidding. And about 3 or 4 months later, he gives me a call and he says, hey, I've got your first 3 plane tickets booked. Meet me in North Carolina and we'll set up the show. And I was like, are we going to rehearse or practice or do anything like that? And he's like, nah, you'll figure it out. It's like, yeah, all right, cool.
Last week, I just talked to Murray Sawchuk about this, when he got his gig at the casino that at the Tropicana. He thought it was going to be some big formal interview and thing. But the truth of the matter was he just met somebody downstairs and said, hey, you want to work for me? Yeah. Okay. You got the job.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah. What's great about those kind of experiences is because there wasn't an established idea of what it was going to be. Really, it was personality driven. It was like, hey, I think you have these skills to do this. And we've worked together before. Is this going to be cool? And I was like, yeah, it sounds great. Yeah. Okay, well, sign on the line, The first game show I ever did, we literally had FedEx boxes delivering lights and microphones and moving heads to the venue. And we're opening up FedEx boxes. And we're like, I guess this fits here. Okay, well, this is the show. I don't think I could have ever called that as a performing magician that game shows would have been my passion. I've got a very weird set of skills, and one of those is born of that original summer camp that I went through and stayed with until I was, in my 20s. Mm-hmm. I think a good game show host is a little pinch of camp counselor with a dash of cruise ship director. Having stage skills, magic skills definitely helps when it comes to picking your audience members that are coming up on stage. And then the rest is just magic and game shows have one beautiful thing in common where everyone is broken down to a place where they can be kids, where they can play. I think that's one of the beauties of doing a game show is that everyone comes at it with the same amount of knowledge, with the same amount of excitement, and can really participate in the play of game shows. There's something beautiful about that.
I love doing game shows. I myself, I created something called the Bully Game, which teaches bully prevention in a game show format. After COVID, I created a show called Fun and Games and Magic. Mm-hmm. Every piece that I do is magic, but it's a game show piece. For example, I do Doug Malloy's Lemon Game.
Lemon Games? Yep.
Yeah, Lemon Game.
Yep. I love it.
I do a shell game. But the cool thing about it is, yes, we use 1 or 2 or 3 volunteers from the audience, but the truth is the entire audience is playing along in their head. Even though we're only playing with those 2 or 3 people, the entire audience is involved. In a game show, everybody's involved. Everybody's guessing the answer to that question in their head. Everybody's chiming in their head.
And this is something that is sort of mind-blowing because, I mean, if I'm being very honest, I think that shows like Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune make no sense from an audience perspective, right? From an audience perspective, there's no reason why you should enjoy watching it. And yet there's something that makes you feel included when you can guess the answer or when you get validated for the weird knowledge that's in your head and you feel like, hey, that they're speaking directly to me. So yeah, I really genuinely love the experience of being a game show host and the group think that happens, even though you might be directing your attentions to 1 to 4 people up on stage.
Yeah. I wonder if it's a proven fact that when you're on Facebook and you get a like for one of your posts, that you have a chemical change in your body that makes you feel good. And I wonder if that's the same when you get an answer right in a game show.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's always that could have been me. The human lizard brain is so easy to fool, right? I mean, as a magician, you know that. And I think that's one of the exciting parts. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've finished a show and an audience member who never made it up on stage comes to me and not only says I had a great time, but they like whisper to me like, I knew all the answers. Like had it been them that came up on stage, they would have knocked it out of the park. And I love that. I really love that.
Well, because they're involved in it.
Yeah.
Do you incorporate a lot of magic into your hosting?
So I don't. Well, let's take specifically over the virtual game show launch time. So from March of 2020, I really keep my personas very separate. So here's one of the things I want to just make sure I just get out as maybe helpful to anyone out there who is listening and thinking about doing the game show bit. I think one of the parts of doing game shows, specifically for me, this virtual game show trivia stream, is that it is the closest to my actual personality that I've ever been able to put forth on stage. When it comes to magic, there's a certain element of that a magician needs to exude, right? I mean, you're always one ahead of your audience. I mean, at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're lying to their face and trying to make them have a good time while you're lying to their face. With the game show aspect, there's something very personal where I love to be able to connect, not just as a performer, but as a human, and be able to use that platform, the station of having the microphone and walking through the game as a way of really making sure that everyone who comes to that show gets a piece of me and also gets a chance to be in that group think that we were talking about earlier, and have the experience of being with me. And one of the things that I found I couldn't have ever predicted before this virtual show started. When the show started, I wrote one show. Like I had 50 questions and that was the show. And we put graphics up and all that. And I realized, those times where you're like, there's no way I could have been smart enough to do this ahead of time, but it just worked out that way. That's what happened to me. I realized that my friends who are mentalists or balloon artists or jugglers or magicians, in the virtual market, they're like, I figured out how to do my one virtual show. Maybe if you're lucky, you have an A show and a B show. Right. And on the rare occasion, you have an A show, a B show, and a Black History Month show, or, that's your thing, right? For me, with game shows, there's no limit to the number of episodes that I can have. So like currently, I think we have 60 something shows fully written, fully produced with lights and different graphics and fun things to kind of parceled out throughout each show to keep people coming back. I really love I love the experience of just knowing that every time I meet with a group of people that they have a formula that they follow, just like on Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune or Price is Right. You know the games, you know how this works. You know that you get 4 contestants, they come down, they bet, then one person gets, like, you know the format. Yeah. But each time it's a little bit different, and the experience can be different. I wish I was smart enough to know that ahead of time, but that's one of the things that keeps me going in the business. And I love the fact that I've gotten over the fear of launching something new. As a magician, I agonize whenever I change a bit or change
do a new routine.
You do a new routine. Yep. You agonize over it. And I can't tell you how many times I've had that prop in my table and, I'm looking at my show set and it's like, today's the day we're going to put this new thing in. And I pass it up to go in my comfortable show that I know is going to work.
Your proven routines that you've done a million times.
Exactly. With these virtual shows, one of the things I love is that I've gotten over that fear. Sometimes every single week is brand new. Every show that we do is brand new. And I love that Monday is finishing up writing the next week's set. Tuesday, we'll do a review and walk through with our team, like how each question and make sure everything flows right. Wednesday, we go through graphics. Thursday, we'll launch the show. It's brand new, and I have all the new facts and figures up in my head. Friday and Saturday are writing days, and we just start over again on the process. And there's something just very like Night at the Improv about that, You
have an entire process, 1, 2, 3, 4 of what you do every single week.
Yeah. That
creates a new product.
That's right. And I love that. It's been truly amazing. And it's helped me in my magic shows too, because now I just, I have no fear about putting something brand new up, and I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have had that confidence or that experience without having done, call it 55 brand new shows that I've just launched and just been like, I don't know if this is going to work, but y'all know the format, y'all know me, and y'all know how this is going to go. Let's jump into it.
It seems like you could use that exact same process when you're putting together a magic routine or a juggling routine, whatever it is. That's what gives you the confidence. You go, okay, if I do 1, 2, 3, 4, by the end, I'm gonna be able to put that up on stage.
Yeah. And a lot of the for me personally, and I don't know if this speaks to everybody, but for me personally, it is all personality driven. That's the part that I get back, is that I really get to be like, I don't know if this question is funny. I don't know if the answer choices that we have are going to work. I don't know if the graphics and sound are all going to line up, but I do know that if y'all have been with me for 3 months, that if we get through this one, y'all are still going to have a good time. And right. Yeah, it does take a lot of the fear out of it.
During the COVID thing, a lot of entertainers, their live shows just stopped. So everybody's trying to figure out virtual shows. Were you doing virtual shows before that, or how did that all work out?
Here's how this went down. I had a show in Delaware on March 12th, and I was scheduled to fly out with myself and our tech guy to go do this show in Delaware. The night before that show, my tech guy called me and said that he had 102-degree temperature. And this is, try to put yourself back at early 2020. Nobody understood what COVID was or anything. It was just the weird sea disease that was somewhere out there, right? And I told my tech guys, like, dude, this COVID thing might be a big deal. I don't know, but I sure don't want us to show up and spit in the face of everyone by you being sick and showing up. Plus, I don't want to spend a time on a plane and in a hotel with you while you're sick. So why don't you stay home? So I flew out I landed in Baltimore to drive up to Delaware. I flew out, and when I landed, that show got canceled because they had 3 positive cases of COVID on their campus. That show got canceled. And within probably the next 36 hours, the rest of our entire year got canceled. And I know this is not a surprise to anyone. That happened to everyone out there.
That exact thing happened to me, and it happened to probably everybody listening to this. I had 60 or 70 shows booked, and every single one of them called and canceled. But ironically, and I said this on the podcast before, the last show that ever canceled was in a city named Corona. Not far from me. It's true. I'm not making that up.
Man, side note, I have always felt that that the airline's Delta must just hate
man,
there's a Delta variant.
That's horrible.
It's horrible, man. Don't name a Gus variant. I'd be so mad. I'd be so mad.
A beer, Corona beer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. They went through so much. We like, guys, because there were people out there that thought you could get Corona by drinking a Corona beer. And
yeah,
I don't think that's science. Anyway, so
shows get canceled.
Shows get canceled. I land in Baltimore and I basically get in a car and drive back from Baltimore. That was my only choice. Over the 3-day drive that it was from Baltimore back to Austin, Texas, I went through all the stages of grief that everyone goes through. I went through panic. I went through defeat. And then I called my friend Brian Brushwood, and I said, he's a YouTuber. He does Scam School and a bunch of other podcasts. I was like, hey man, look, I need to know about the virtual world. How do I do that? And he was like, yeah, man, if only you had thought of that like 5 years ago, like I did, right?
Yeah.
And then he helped walk through. He's like, I think that there's probably some plugin you should check out on Twitch. Just check that out and see what happens. So I called our tech guy who was sick at the time still. And I was like, hey, check out Twitch. What I need you to do is find a plugin that we can use. Tell me what the format is and I'll write the game. And about Kansas, he called and said, all right, I found this plugin.
Wait, I love that you're not going by time. You're going by like state.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, you've toured, you know exactly how that goes, right? It's like time doesn't matter. It's like, can I get to a hotel that has like at least a review on Yelp? That's all.
Yeah.
Like, so he calls us like, check this out. I stopped at the hotel. I checked it out. And by the time I got back, I had a show written that was what is now Trivia Stream. And when I got back home, he was still sick, but he was like coughing and he was holding up like a green blanket behind him. And he was like, well, this is if I had a green screen and you were standing there and then we did this, and it became Trivia Stream. And I think, going back to your original question, one of the things that I'm very proud of this show for is instead of taking a show that we already had and trying to use a hammer and force it into the virtual world, what we did is we started with what's already out there in the virtual world. How do we build a show that is designed for the virtual world? That's one of the things I'm very proud of. Instead of looking at other performers in my industry, what I looked at were professional YouTubers, was professional Twitch streamers, was professional people who are influencers, people who lived online. And what I found was it's not a mistake that there are people out there who play video games for a living and have 8 million followers and 5 houses, right? Like that's not a mistake. They're doing something. And what they're doing is they have amazing lighting. They have amazing cameras. They have audience interaction. They have sponsorship. They have a formula that they follow and a tribe that they cultivate to make their channel successful.
Sure.
And that's my ultimate goal. That's my excitement about the virtual space and Trivia Stream as a game show, is that I've actually seen how that connection can happen. And for me personally, and I know this isn't going to be true for everyone out there, but for me personally, that connection has been so much stronger in the last year and 8 months than it had ever been for the 16 years that I was on tour. I mean, for those times, I'd get followers on Instagram, I'd get followers on Facebook, I'd wish people happy birthday, but it wasn't quite the same as week after week getting messages from people or having people be like, hey, can you wish my brother happy birthday? A lot of the generation that is in colleges right now they don't have cable. They don't watch network TV. They don't watch anything that I considered standard or, in my generation was standard. They don't do that. What they do is they turn on YouTube and they're watching YouTube shows or following Twitch streamers. You and I are of a similar generation. And so it's very hard to really understand that there are Twitch streamers out there that will stream for 18 hours in a day, and hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, will wake up at 6 a.m. and start watching them off in a corner of their work screen and follow them through their day for 18 hours. That's impossible for someone in our generation to truly understand. And yet that's what happens.
If there's something anybody can take away from this talk, it's that. Because when I was a kid and growing up, I could name every TV show because I was brought up with television. That was the thing. And now my kids, who I mentioned earlier, are older. They spend very little time on TV, almost zero time. It's all on YouTube, Twitch, just like you're saying, Twitter, Facebook. I'm old. Facebook,
right?
Instagram,
this interwebs and their jazz music. Get off my lawn!
But it's true. It's absolutely true. It's a different generation, and we need to understand that and take advantage of it, like you're doing.
Yeah. There's the persona side, which we've sort of covered, and then for the work side of it, another factor for me was watching these Twitch streamers was a big thing. I mean, that was my homework, was to like go back to square one and watch people who were making it work in the industry that we were going into, which was the virtual market. Mm-hmm. And what I noticed was, man, these people aren't using webcams. Like, these people aren't using their built-in microphone from their laptop. These people aren't using, opening a window and calling that lighting. These people have a full-on set that they're going for. And what a beautiful time to be alive, that you can buy a green screen, you can buy LED par cans, you can buy a good microphone.
You can now. I don't know if you could in March.
Well, that's true, because everything was gone. Yeah. Oh, everything was. I tried to buy a webcam for my son so he could go to school, and it was like, you can, if you want to wait 6 months, maybe you can get it.
But it is a beautiful time that you can get all that stuff now.
Now, yeah. It's what I'm basically saying is it's not the same thing as 10 years ago. If you wanted to set up a TV studio in your house or whatever, that you're talking a huge investment of cash. And the other thing that I think has been fun over the last year and 8 months is that you don't have to get everything right away. You can, every little thing that you upgrade makes a big difference. And so just recently we were able to get our new nice camera that we got. But before that, we were using a GoPro, which was better video than the, external webcam that we had before, which is better video than the built-in webcam, right?
Well, here's what I found on that. There has been kind of a learning curve, like in March, April, May, June. I think a lot of people accepted lesser quality. But now that we're a year and a half in, people are more used to higher quality lighting, higher quality video, etc. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about a little magic crossover with we're talking about studio space right now, but in the magic crossover for me, I think that in magic, I personally don't work with like pre-K and younger kids.
Yeah.
There are people who are really amazing at that. That's just not my strong suit. It's like 5 to 15. I'm good at, there's a gap between 15 and 18, and then 18 to 105. Like, I'm really good with those. I'm not great with high school kids. Middle school kids, I'm still cool with. Elementary school kids, I got you. Preschool kids, we don't speak the same language. With really young kids, my philosophy on it has always been, look, I'm going to charge you for a normal show, like when we're talking about a magic show. But to be honest, I feel like you're wasting your money, because for me, if I flip on lights, you don't know how that works. And that's magic.
Yeah.
And that feels weird to me. I think that the same thing is true with your comfortability of technology now. When we do corporate work, I love being able to take the stress out of corporate work for our clients, because we have a full-time professional tech guy, James Caldwell, who is a tech genius. I don't have to hit any buttons. I don't have to do any of the OBS switches. I don't have to do any of that stuff. My job is to host that show and be with my audience. His job is to make sure that if people are having VPN problems, that those get solved, that sound is on point, that if there's some weird video lag, we've got that taken care of. All people want at the end of the day is, because they invited a group of people that they clearly are in their sphere of influence, they want those people to have a good time.
Yeah.
And just like not having a good microphone for a live show as a magician, not being able to provide a safe and comfortable technology space takes away from your show. You could do a great job as a performer, but if people can't hear you, or somebody's muted through their entire speech, that doesn't play well. So yeah, I think it's a great time to show that you are a pro by just solving the easy problems that technology can throw at you. But if you know how to deal with them, you're 100%.
It seems like if there are no problems at all, nobody notices. But if there's one problem, whether it's audio or lighting or whatever it may be, everybody notices that. So instead of saying, hey, that Gus Davis, he was a great guy, he was hilarious, he was fun, they say, oh, did you hear his microphone?
Right. So I wanted to tell you something else that has been a very huge switch for me for doing game shows in the virtual space versus live or doing magic shows. And that is that I've learned that, again, this is for me, but I've learned that I live and die by the chat room. So I've tried to take the the windows. If we're doing a Zoom show for a magic show, for example, I don't mind in a Zoom show if all of the windows your video is off. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's very different from a lot of other performers, because I think that the idea of having windows open and having video open is being able to interact just like you're doing a live show. But I really wanted to approach my virtual magic show in the same way I did the game show, which is we're not doing a live show as far as us being in person. Mm-hmm. What we're doing is a virtual show. And so let's use the tools that people are used to with the virtual space. What I encourage people to do is use that chat room. What's great is now with the chat room, people are having a group experience in that chat room where somebody will say, oh, that's cool. And you don't get that in a live magic show. For me, you don't get people like tapping their neighbor and being like, oh, that's cool. And then everyone around them tapping their neighbor and saying, oh, that's cool. Or I really enjoyed that. You don't get that. That's not what a live show is, right? People clap, or maybe they go, wow, but they're not going to spread and talk through the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a different type of feedback.
Exactly.
Where you're speaking to the individual people as opposed to an audience of however many it is.
Right. So I love focusing more on the chat room as a feedback loop, because now one person can say that was cool and more people can piggyback on that. And it's like doing a show where you say, hey, everybody, talk amongst yourselves during the show. Let's have a good time, which is a very different space than doing a live magic show or game show. And the same thing's true for the game show that we do for Trivia Stream. Is there is no video at all on Trivia Stream. It's all done through Twitch. So it's all one-way video. It's me broadcasting out. But what people do is we have chat room challenges. So we have challenges that happen in the chat room as well. And we just encourage community and chat in the chat room. And it's great to be able to be doing your thing and looking up and seeing the chat room just exploding with people having a good time or being like, oh, I'll get you next time, or I won, or whatever. And people being like, oh, that's great, good job. Which again, you just don't get that in a live setting.
I'm kind of hearing the same thing kind of over and over, that when we perform live, it's one situation. When you perform virtually, it is completely different. We're taking it from a virtual angle, which is completely different from a live angle.
For me, that's huge. I think that there's a lot of people, and this is no shade on anyone. I'm glad everybody made it through 2020, right? Like if you made it through 2020, pat yourself on the back. But for me, I love the idea that we came at it from a very, how are people who are making their entire living in the virtual space for years and years and years prior to 2020, how are they making this thing work? And I think that by taking that angle versus taking how can we make our live show work in the virtual space angle, that we created something that I'm genuinely proud of. Yeah.
Let's get off. Well, it's kind of a virtual space thing. I'm kind of old school. So when I'm looking for gigs, I'm still doing snail mail and I'm still doing email and all of those things. But you've gotten a lot of gigs through social media and stuff. Tell me about how you would be marketing and doing business through social media.
Okay. I think that everything goes in weird cycles. I think that the business world always goes in weird cycles. And the cycle that we're currently in, I feel personally, is a cycle of people who do not read. They just don't read anything. And I will back that up by saying, and I'm sure many of you out there will agree, that I have sent so many tech writers that are as clear and as concise and are as simplified as possible. They might say things that match, like, hey, I'm going to need one XLR cable and one HDMI cable and a projector. That doesn't seem like it's that hard.
Yeah.
And then I show up and none of those things are there. And also they've advertised me as a mentalist. Like it's amazing to me how that happens. Nobody reads. I think that many people who are now taking the jobs of the gatekeepers of business, of bringing in entertainment, are sort of in the younger crowd. And I think that just follow me on this one for a second, because we're going to go off script for a second. But I think that many of them are very in the world of emojis and memes, and both of those forms of communication are very picture based. I think that the more you can get across in a very short video or a very short image concept, the easier it is to communicate what it is that you need or that you're trying to do. I love English. I love writing. My grandmother was a librarian for over 50 years. Like I grew up in a household of reading and writing and trying to make my copy as clear and concise as possible. It's frustrating to do all of that work, and then all you're left with is this idea of like, please refer to my previous email, which is something you never want to say, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the more that you can make people get the ideas behind what you're trying to get across in a picture format or a video format that's literally like, all right, so what you're going to do is you're going to open this thing and then you're going to click on this green. We made it green. It goes green, yellow, red. Click on green first. Then on the next page, there's a yellow thing. Click on yellow. It's the only thing that's yellow on the page. Yeah. And then click on the red one and you are done. The clearer that you can do that, the better it is. And I don't actually think that that's the dumbing down of society. I think it's a change in communication.
I always take the example of our parents.
Sure.
They're like, oh, that Elvis Presley, when he moves his hips, that's going to ruin society. So it does go generation to generation to generation. These are changes that we have to keep up with, especially as entertainers.
I'm a huge podcast listener. I was listening to a podcast. I wish I remember what it was, but I was doing some research for one of our Hispanic Heritage Month show or LGBTQ show or whatever. And I remember that this podcast was saying that they did an interview with kids between the age of, I think it was 13 to 18. I'm not exactly sure, but they said, here are a list of words. Tell me how bad these words are.
Yeah.
And it went through all of these cuss words that for me, shock my poor, delicate 40-year-old ears, right?
Yeah.
Things that you wouldn't hear on the radio, right? And they rated those 5s,
Wow.
3s, 2s, like who cares about those words? Then they went through a list of racial slurs or body shaming words and things like that, and they rated those 7s, 10s. Like we don't say that.
Interesting.
And I thought that was fascinating when you think about what the younger generation thinks about and what they think is important. And again, I think that that's not a dumbing down. That's a huge shift. Cussing somebody out is totally fair game, but making fun of their heritage or their orientation or their skin color, come on, bro. Like we don't do that here. I think that that's very interesting, and that's another
fascinating.
Right. It's another thing that I think that if you're going to interact with that specific generation, that it's important to keep in mind is that what we as slightly older gentlemen think about as important.
Thank you.
I got you. Is much less so for the way that they're growing up and developing. And I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and it makes complete sense.
Yeah, as two parents who have kids, that totally tracks. I've listened to the lyrics of some songs and thought to myself, I can't believe that's on the radio.
Right.
And yet for them, they're just like, hey, that's a cool song, and that person on social media is awesome. But you start talking about things that are more personal or based in some kind of hate crime or whatever, and that all of a sudden becomes really taboo.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Now I noticed on your website that it's driven a lot by video. It's quick. I see a lot of websites, especially older websites, are real copy heavy, but yours, and I think probably the newer fangled ones. Why am I talking that voice all of a sudden? the newer websites seem to be more picture and video driven.
Yeah, as with doing the research for the virtual show with taking just straight up Twitch streamers as my market or teachers on what they're doing that builds the tribe that follows them. Are you aware of the Oculus, the Oculus, the headset from?
Yeah, I'm not that old.
Okay, cool. Well, back in my day, their website is so crisp and clean, and there's probably less than 100 words on their website. I mean, it is amazing how they figured out how to get across everything that someone needs to know about their product without putting much words on anything. I certainly don't compare my website to that in any way, shape, or form, but I do love that they're tapped into that type of mentality. The Oculus is voodoo space magic. Like, I have no idea how that thing works. I have no idea the programming that goes behind it. And really, if it were me, I'd be like, hey, minions, y'all bow down to our technological genius, right? And instead of that, there's just really clear, crisp pictures that kind of ease into the screen with their logo and say, do you want to experience this? It's $2.99. That's it. Click here.
I'm also a big podcast listener, and I was listening to a pod, just like you. I can't think of what it is, but they were talking about when the first Apple stores were open, that people laughed at them because the Apple stores, they're open. There's just a few stations, but it ended up people would wait in lines, and they were way ahead of their time in opening those stores because they were clean, they were clear, they were crisp. They didn't have a million things on the shelf like every other store did.
I just had this like full circle connector thought. This goes back to game shows as well. I think one of the big things that we all need to keep in mind in any show that we do, regardless of the genre or the variety art or what have you, is that at the very baseline, people don't want to feel stupid. And I think that's the nice thing about having as clean, as crisp, and as non-wordy of a presence as possible is people don't feel stupid when they can't read words or they don't get the concept that you've painstakingly written out in copy. If they can get the concept, then they feel smart. I think that's a big key in any game show that you do as well, is that my job isn't to say I'm smarter than you or that I know the answer and you don't or whatever. My job is, even if you get it wrong, to help salve that sting a little bit and try to make everyone feel like, hey, even if you got it wrong, you at least got this part of it. And that was a tricky question. Let's move on. You'll get it in the future. Yeah, I think that's a big part of the generation that we're dealing with now too, is making sure that people don't feel stupid, because they're not stupid.
Yeah.
I think that they care about different things than we grew up caring about.
All right, Gus, we're going to play my game show.
All right, I'm on.
We're going to do something called
big money.
That's right. Fact or something John just made up. Sound good?
It sounds great.
Is it fact? Or is it something John just made up?
Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you a headline, and then you tell me whether it's true or not. And if it is true, tell me a little more about it.
All right, hit me up.
Here we go. First headline: Gus has been homeless.
Oh man, you did your research. This is great. Yeah. All right. So that's a true fact. That's true. I was my mom's awesome. My mom ran away to sea when she was 18 years old. She got on a 18-foot sailboat and sailed all around in the Caribbean and stuff like that. Her last stop was in Grenada, where she met my dad. And then shortly thereafter, the Grenadian-American War happened. And basically the U.S. is like, hey, you need to come back to the United States if you want to be an American citizen. She's like, Roger that. So she came back to the United States, and 8.5 months later, I popped out. When I was born, my mom had no place to live. She was just living, she had sold all of her stuff and was coming back from living on a boat. And so, yeah, my first few months were sleeping at some of her friends' houses or friends of friend houses with a brand new baby. Yeah, that's true.
Wow. So that's more her story than yours.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember that very, very much. I do remember growing up that, we had to work our way back up from having nothing. There was a lot of times there's a lot of like recycling cans to get some food money and stuff like that. But, it turned out okay.
And look where you are now.
Yeah, look at me now, Mom.
Dang it. All right, next headline. Gus has done over 500 virtual shows and counting.
Ooh. Yeah, that's also true. We've done we've done, I don't know, a little over 350, I guess, maybe more than that now, virtual shows of game shows. Mm-hmm. And then I've been doing in the virtual market my my magic show as well, and been doing pretty well with that. One of the things I love about the virtual world is that I can do 3 shows in a day from my house and not miss dinner or lunch or picking up my son from school. And that's been really, really awesome. So yeah, that's true.
All right. Next headline. Gus was a guest on the game show To Tell the Truth, pretending to be a game show host.
What's the Robert Houdin quote of a magician is a actor playing the part of a magician?
That's right. Something like that.
Yeah. That is untrue. That is not true. I will say there, one of the one of the, I hate to say this, but one of the worst shows that I was ever a part of, I was doing a Family Feud tribute show, which was one of our stables for our game shows to go. And the corporate group that hired us had Richard Karn, the one of the hosts of Family Feud prior to now, as a host. So my job was to teach Richard how to do our version of the show that he did on TV. It was brutal, man. It was brutal. He's a very nice guy, but it was he's very used to the TV thing where you can say, cut, let's take two.
He was the guy on Home Improvement, right?
Yeah.
Not Tim Allen, obviously.
Right.
But his guy, right?
Which is so funny you say that, because he did a question and answer afterwards, and basically everyone was like, hey man, what's it like working with Jonathan Taylor Thomas?
That's awful.
It's terrible.
Okay,
man.
well,
Terrible.
I have to chime in. I did, to tell the truth.
Did you?
Years ago, as if anybody's not familiar with the format of the show, basically there's one guy who is the thing. In this particular case, it was the Banana Man. This guy owns a banana museum in Pasadena, Southern California.
I love America. It's best.
And I was a fake Banana Man, and there was one other comedian that was a fake Banana Man. In this show, we had to convince the contestants that we are the real Banana Man.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, I had this big giant banana costume. It was crazy. It's on YouTube somewhere.
You know, I wondered that sparked a thing, but one of the things that I really have come to love about the place that I'm at right now is I remember doing these what we called Survey Says, which, like I said, is a Family Feud tribute show. Mm-hmm. For me, I put 20 years of blood, sweat, and tears into being the best damn game show host I could for each one of those shows. And I'd come out, and by the end, I'd have the crowd rocking and rolling, and people jump up and scream and all of that stuff. And at the end of the show, I remember that without fail, there was almost always somebody who came up and said, man, that was great. I had a great time. You're just like that Steve Harvey guy. I remember that there was something very, what's that called? Imposter syndrome, or I'm sure it's how anybody who does like an Elvis impersonation or anything like that, where they just put their life out there. I mean, they're giving it everything they can. And the best that they get in a response is, man, that sure reminded me of somebody else, you know? And so, yeah, there's something that I love about the idea of this show for me now, that it's not derivative, or there's not that ceiling of expertise. And that's, no shade on any other game show host that's out there. Steve Harvey has been crushing it on Family Feud. I think that having yourself be marketable as yourself is a lot more powerful than giving somebody a tribute show that lets them have the experience of not having to fly to Burbank and be in the live studio audience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So hopefully someone will come up to you afterwards and, oh man, you are just like, you're just like that Gus Davis guy.
Right. Dude, that's awesome that you got to be on that actual game show. Was it fun?
Yeah, it was fun. I didn't quite know what to expect, because I've always been on the other side, always been interviewing people and being the host and being the guy. So when people were asking me questions, I was really nervous, quite honestly. Yeah. I was sweating, and
it's the worst. I hate that.
Yeah. It was crazy. All right, last question, and then I'll get you out of here. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Here we go. Gus did his first professional show for 400 people when he was 12.
Yeah, that's totally true.
Oh, is it?
I'll tell you, most of my performing career has been related to somebody just saying, hey, go do this thing. And I'd be like, yeah, that sounds fine. And then put myself out there. And the first time is always just super, okay, I guess this is what's happening. Yeah. My very first public show, I was coming from doing all of these, performing at the summer camp, and they needed me to do a spot. I believe it was a show for other magicians, like a TAOM or something like that. I remember I was backstage and I was like, the MC came to me and was like, hey, what's your name? And I was like, it's Gus Davis. He's like, that's terrible. What's your performing name? I was like, it's Gus the Great. And he's like, perfect. And he goes on stage. He's like, please welcome to the stage, Gusto the Great. And I was like, okay, I guess that's my name now. So I go out on stage. I'm using giant air quotes here. My act was, I walked out juggling with a change bag in my back pocket.
Yeah.
I started off by juggling. Well, I'm so green that I didn't realize what spotlights were. So I'm facing the spotlight instead of turning sideways. And I'm just going off of muscle memory. And somehow I got through it. But to this day, I know that I didn't see any of those clubs. And then, reach in my back pocket, pull out a change bag, do something with a change bag and say, all right, it's great to see you. Looking back on that is so cringeworthy, but yeah, that's how I got my start, man.
Everybody has that first show. My first show.
You got to do that first show.
My first show was in the foyer of a ghetto apartment building, all cement, where it was echoing, and I was doing my show and trying to get through it. And then afterwards I think I got paid $100, and I was so happy.
Oh, you did way better than me. I didn't get paid for that one, but my very first show that I did get paid for was $40.
Woo!
And it's the big leagues. It was $40. And again, my timeline has been so strange because at the time, being 12, 13, 14 and getting $40 for an hour and a half worth of work that, I didn't even have to drive to. Somebody else had to drive me. I couldn't even drive myself. Was great. I mean, that's way better than mowing lawns or whatever else you could get into at 13, 14. So you have to do that first one and enjoy it and know that it's going to be bad, but get out there and do it again and again and again.
That was fact. Or something John just made up.
Well, thanks, Gus, for doing my show. That was really fun. You're hilarious, man.
Hey, man, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Now, where can someone see you in action? Can someone see you in action?
Yeah. So what we're trying to do now, after a year and 8 months, we really have the format of the show pretty cemented. And so what we're trying to do is once a month, do a live public show that anyone can come see and check out and be a part of. There's a $300 prize package that we just give away as a thank you. We are working on sponsorship deals. That's what game shows are all about, is being sponsored by somebody. Regardless, we are trying to make it fun and let people have a chance to see what our show is and see if there's a way that, you can take that back and let other people know, or maybe it inspires you to do something.
How do they go about tuning into that?
Yeah, so you can go to triviastreamgameshow.com. You can also follow us at Trivia Stream Game Show on Instagram. You can also just click on my website, which is very narcissistic and easy. It is www.gusdavis.com. If I could get www.gusdavis.me, I would, just for the joke. But yeah, you can find us on any of those spaces, and we'll post when we're going live. We're trying to do it's on Twitch, but we're trying to do once a month, the first Tuesday of every month, and that will start on October 8th. If you can tune in, you're definitely welcome. I hope you enjoy it, and just give us a follow, and we'll do it again.
That'd be fun. Are there any other social medias you want to promote?
Honestly, if you go to my website, again, www.gusdavis.com, if you go to that, you can click on any of the, there's lots of links for social media. You can click on there and find me there.
Great. And thanks to all my variety artists. Tell your friends about the Variety Artist Podcast. Now go out and book those gigs, make some money, and have some fun.
That's all for this episode of The Variety Artist, but your journey continues on our website. Go to thevarietyartist.com for more strategies, insight, and resources, as well as show notes on today's guest to assist you in your career. We'll see you on the next episode of The Variety Artist. But until then, go out and book those gigs, make some money, and have some fun.